of doing these three different area is very clear for me, because once you understand the basic concept, you can apply it to industrial, you can apply it to residential, you can apply it to uh, hospitality, you can apply it to, government, you can apply it to many different things. So when I decide that I would do a series on wellness and decide to explore, um, I thought about the, like putting it into my five different area, which is the source, the fixtures, manufacturing, design, and the whole market about it. And and since we've been talking about source and design and manufacturing, now today I was thinking like, okay, now let's integrate a little bit more design, so that we get something that it's a bit more applicable to our projects. And as as you understood so far, circadian lighting is not about technology, right? We know that we need technology, but we need also to make sure that the people that are going to be in that space, have an experience. We want to create an experience. And moreover, what we want is we want the biological body to really, embrace and do everything, do the work, so that the body is getting, healthier and less stress and so forth. So basically, what we're doing is that we're going to work on the system, right? The system capability. And I call it a system because, as we also saw, it's not about having the right light fixture. It's not about having the right control system. It's not about having the right source, at the right place. It's not about having the right space. It's about everything together, and how it create this human experience. How does it's going to interact with our body? How is it going to be? How are we going to do this in practice? How are we going to use all these design ideas and these design consideration, and all of those other the little variable, and put them together so it gives something that is a well taught and a performing product. So let's start with talking about a little bit about aligning the light with the human rhythm, right? So we talked about the alignment of the human rhythm, and later I will give you more data about that. But let's just talk about the curve: the morning, rise, during the day, and then it dim down towards the night. So what we want to do is we want to make sure that in the morning our system is activating the people, right? So people are energetic. They're getting into their days. They're waking up. They're going to work. They're starting their days. So that's what we want. We want to make sure also, once they're in the peak, they have the clarity. They have the everything they're going. They're just at it. And then as the evening come in, they start to relax. They start to go into the chill mode. They start to get ready to go to bed and re-energize. So basically, that's what we want to think, and that's what we want to create with our lighting. And what are the variables to achieve that? Okay, because we've been talking about a lot of stuff, but what are the real variable about that? So the first thing we're going to talk is about that really affect our body is the intensity, right? So we are in the morning, we need that rise, and at night we need that dimming curve. So basically, we need a lot of power in the morning. during the day, and then we need something that's going down, at night. Then we talked about the spectrum. And the spectrum is very, very scientific and technical, and there's very complicated term. But basically what we want to make sure is that we're going from warm lighting to cool lighting to warm lighting. So warm lighting, cool lighting, warm lighting. That's the 10,000 feet overview, and that's what we want to achieve with our system. And then segment by segment, right? As the time goes during the day, our timing will follow the biological clock and also the atmospheric, the atmospheric condition of the outside. So the variable are first the intensity, spectrum, right? The range from warm to cold, and the timing, because we during the day have different times. So knowing these three variables will help us when we design to make sure that we start to work with products that give us what we need. And as we know, our design, like when we're thinking about circadian lighting, we cannot think about a static design. So now when we start programming across the day, we need to make sure that we are following some kind of a schedule. So we're going to go up, down, and different intensity. This week I was, like I told you, I've been ordering all kinds of product, testing all kinds of technology, and I was amazed to see that the amount of light that you get at 2% when you are in your own environment and it's dark. I was blown away. Everybody was sleeping, and I was, with my phone and Alexa, and I was also having other controller, and I was testing what it is, like the lower minimum amount of light that there is a room, so that you don't kick your toe, or while you watch TV, or while you're doing another task, relaxing. And at 2%, the room was pretty bright, because I positioned the light in strategic places. So again, part of the programming, you will work with that. The second thing is that what we want to do is that we want to make sure that we integrate, that the integration of our system work with the standard, whatever standard they are, right? We have lead consideration, we have well consideration, we have different type of standard, and we want to make sure that our system we can integrate it with that, especially for the occupants, because when we start doing place where we have lead compliance, and especially if we have a very, very aggressive team that wants to get like a super duper lead homologation at a very high level, these little details can make it or break it. So the last thing we want is make sure that we're not breaching any standard, and we are complying and moving towards that completion. And also that our lighting concept match with the circadian lighting concept that we're doing. So it is also part of the negotiation, trade-off. Sometimes it's the motivation, because somebody would say, well, we don't have money for a control system. Okay, good. Maybe what you can do is now, just because we want to have this add-on as a circadian lighting concept, well, now we can release a little part of the budget or work out a control system. And of course, when we start, thinking about comfort, well, these are some of the. We're going to make sure that our wellness concept function also give you know, everybody fit well. So that's the idea. It meets our fit well focus. So circadian design, it's not just a scene. It's not just something that's going to happen during the day, right? It's not just I push in and I have circadian. No, it's a schedule, Monday to Friday or Monday to Sunday, because the body doesn't stop. If we have office space, we may have the schedule continue on the weekend, but attached to some sensor which turn the lights off. So if there's nobody in the office, even though the clock is working, the light won't turn on because there's nobody there. So there's no occupancy. But let's say you want to go work late on the weekend. You have nothing to do on Sunday night and you want to go to work. Well, the lighting would follow the schedule. And now that you're activating some sensors, well, the light would turn on into that section of the office where you work. And then you would have, the benefits of being on a circadian schedule. So, and what would that do? Well, beside the obvious, of being more alert and more productive, it permits you to start the cycle of circadian whatever the time you're in. Let's say you're in the morning, you will have the benefits of the morning. Let's say you come in the afternoon towards the end of the day, or you come in the evening, you will have the right light level that will gradually rise or fall. Let's say you're a very early bird. You come in at the office at 5:30 or 5 in the morning. Well, you're going to be on the night schedule. And then as the day wake up, the lighting is going to do the same thing. And it's going to increase the intensity. And your body will follow that wave. And then that way, your energy level will grow with the lighting system. So by having this gradual increase and this gradual decrease, what's happening is that now your body's in tune with, the exterior, and also your circadian clock inside. Now, hotel, when you do hospitality, that system is magnificent for jet lag, because you arrive from a certain area and you're leaving to a certain area, and your body have to adapt. So your system will automatically get in gear, and the guests that arrive will get in sync automatically. So that's perfect. So that way, they don't have to do something. And again, that's what I was telling you earlier, is that you walk into an area, you feel good. Why? Because you don't have this massive light aggressing you, and you are ready to embrace whatever time of your biological clock that it's time to embrace, to go right in and move on with your day, or to go to bed, or to start the day, or whatever. So the different control layers permits you to adapt, right? Now, when we do restaurant, we mostly have daytime and evening intimacy. Those are mostly our big, I would say, our big time, like the most busy time. So what do? We encourage comfort, relaxation, and we enhance the stay. So people will stay there longer. They're gonna wait longer. They're gonna feel good, and as you're seeing, every different place that we're doing has these little characteristics, but the concept, it's all the same. We're all based on the human biology. When we're going to use the source, we're going to make sure that the source that we're using have the complete spectrum for that part the of the time of the day, and also that also the intensity follows, and you don't have like massive shock, like half the light turns off because you want 50%. This is not how it's done. You have it gradually, and so the biological story that comes inside works well, and your body is embracing it. I mentioned to you two things: general, diffuse, and directional. And those two things you cannot forget those. Those are the basic. Again, light coming from the top, directional. Light coming from the floor up is directional. A beautiful chandelier, beautiful sconce at eye level, general, diffuse, right? So and those are the ones that are gonna feed your internal, biological system with the data that you need to have, so that you don't feel and you don't feel the fatigue, you don't feel the stress, you don't feel, and because your body is in sync with those. So I think right now we have a pretty good idea that when we talk about circadian lighting, we're not just talking about tunable white feature, right? Tunable white features are important and they can go from cool to warm, but we have a little bit more in that spectrum curve. And as we will see eventually, there is some specific frequency that the body needs in order to trigger certain function in our brain. And also, the other thing that we understand is that we can have manual control, absolutely 100%, to override, or if we do a task, or if there's an emergency or something. But we also start to understand that in our design, control systems are going to do whatever they have to do. They're going to be doing, the most of the work, and they're going to be very, very important, because if we don't have automatic system, we're going to be losing. Sometimes we lose track. I'm the champion present. I start to work on something and I'm like, okay, I'm going to put a half an hour on this. An hour and a half later, I'm still on it, because now I discovered that I'm doing this, I'm doing that. I had to go somewhere. I come back. So it is very important to automate that section so that we have zero attention on the system, and it does what it has to do. Goes up, down, up, down, and everything is synchronized with the month of the year, with the season, where the sun is, etc., etc. And we'll talk about that about when we talk about control system. So I'm not going to tell you that this is one of the biggest mistakes, because I don't think there's any mistake in trying to integrate a circadian level. But you will encounter more challenge if you try to implement a circadian design after the design is complete. Why? Because you're going to be needing to review some of the fixtures, right? You may have to review some of the location of the lighting fixtures. And all these changes, the control system, etc., all these change are adding up, because the general contractor, the electrician, and the low voltage programmer, all those guys are going to say, well, tough luck, we didn't have this. That was not part of the plan. I didn't bid for this. So there will be an extra. And although this is the word that I'm allergic to, extra or add on, I'm just telling you that it is easier to start with the mentality that you're going to do a circadian design, and then if you, by God forbid, whatever reason, you need to cut to the minimum, you can downsize your system. And then, and eventually, if they wanted to do an add on or upgrade a part of it, the whole system has been designed for it, just the component have been downsized, and you have the flexibility to do it. That way, if ever later they said, you know what, Bob, you're right, maybe we should go and do it. Well, then you don't have to go and redo the whole project. I mean, in my career, I participate in many different evolution. Uh, you know, the lead evolution. We had fluorescent, we had halogen, we had LED. The LED I kind of went away for a while because I didn't foresee anything positive for a decade. But lighting kept going, and today we have what we have, right? But now let's think about the future. Let's think about 2030, and like, let's say in the future we have certification authorities. We are very familiar with the user experience, right? We know that our public, and the public is aware more and more. Well, we have to think about what compliance will look like, because compliance doesn't guarantee the quality of the experience. Having fixtures that are dimmable and then can go from warm to cold, cold to warm, if they're not at the right place, you're not gonna have the experience. You're gonna feel something's happening, yes, physically, uh, but the biological experience will not be part of it. So when we think about this, how do we make sure, or how do we validate that our design match with what we want to project as an experience, and where circadian design actually lives. Like, I see more and more, and I do a lot of research, and I talk with a lot of manufacturers, and I see more and more, and they say, yeah, we have circadian lighting, and then they show me a catalog cut of a fixtures. For me, this is not a circadian design. Replacing a ceiling in a classroom with color changing fixtures is not a circadian design. So putting fixtures on a control system is not circadian design. As I've been telling you, and I also told you what the body needs, it takes a little bit more in the design than just replacing fixtures. And it must be right at the beginning of the project. We got to program it. We got to start saying, okay, well, this is how this is gonna happen. This is how we're gonna integrate this with the architecture. This is the kind of schedule we want to have. This is the range of budget that we want to apply. This is the type of products that will give us some general diffuse and some directional, right? So all of that have to be integrated, and then you have to talk to the construction team and make sure they understand why, so that they don't put fire exit or having all kinds of distracting element in your range. Let's say you do a classroom or you do a restaurant, and then somebody comes and put TV. Well, guess what? You're just taking your design and throwing it out the window. So it is important to understand that when you do such an operation, you have to make sure that everybody's on the same channel, everybody push in the same direction, and that there is, certain, yes, there is some certain sacrifice that you're going to make, certain compromise, but at the end, everybody will win. And that's how you have to approach it. Everybody's going to win, but we got to all work together to make sure that, we we uh, we push in the same direction. When we do our circadian strategy and we don't integrate, as an example, a control system. Well, we may have the best fixtures, but it will not perform as intended. And it, although it may be okay because where we're starting and as a starting point, just make sure that the infrastructure is going to be there for the evolution. Client says, okay, we don't have the money, but we would like to put the fixtures, and then eventually we'll put the control system. Well, just make sure that the engineer that work with you does the proper wiring so that when it's time to evolve or transfer or move, the proper infrastructure is there. So we just have to connect them and then bring them to the system and have them. Very rarely you'll use a manual system. So because you don't want to lose consistency. You don't want to lose, and consistency is not only on the lighting system. Let's say you have your office people performing a certain task. Well, you don't want to have somebody that comes in or one of your staff to be in charge of pushing the button because we need to change the light. That's completely ridiculous. Because now the trade-off, we're not trading off anything, right? Instead of focusing on the work, he has to put an alarm, and when the alarm comes, he's got to go and push the button and go back to, and then we all know when you're concentrated, when you're in the zone and you're doing something, how hard it is to go back. So you want people that are working. You want people doing their maintenance. You want people that are in the warehouse doing the warehouse stuff. You don't have time to go around and push button and not being consistent. Consistency is achieved only when you have a well-programmed system and it's on automatic, because then nobody have attention on it. Nobody thinks about what's going on or what's going to happen. So as I've been telling you about design, and if you go back in the episode, you'll see that I talk a lot about where we want fixtures and stuff like this. But this episode was mainly about, as a designer, you got to get your intention in. You got to get your own certification, your own certainty, not certification, certainty of what you're doing and why. And let's say you don't feel comfortable. You're all by yourself, or you have a couple, colleague, and they're not, they said, well, with that circadian thing, you're on your own. Well, there's a lot of resource that you can tap into. If you go on ChatGPT, or if you talk to manufacturers, if you talk to bulbs, if you talk to university, there's a lot of resource that can help you to hold the fort for your design intent. And sometimes it has impinged more when you bring an expert in that field to your client and say, well, I'm not an expert, but he is, and he's going to tell you about it. And then they will feel way more confident, and the trust towards you will rise because they understand that you care about them. For you bringing an expert, taking the time to studying it, admitting that this is not your, but this will increase your client's performance, is a very, very gratifying moment because it shows that you are a team player. You know what you don't know, you'll learn. And if you're smart, you're going to take some note. And after a while, you'll be able to do your own presentation. And as this project that you're working on and that you're implementing and all the challenge it's going to bring, because you're going to have challenge, this is not like a walk in the park, but by overcoming challenge after challenge after challenge after challenge, you're gonna have the certainty. You're gonna have the knowledge. You're gonna be able to walk into any meeting and talk to anybody about circadian lighting, and also not only about the design or the source or the manufacturer point view and the manufacturing point view, but about the whole experience. You will have experienced it. You will have experienced the up and down of the design phase. You will have experienced the up and down of the construction phase of the, the powering, commissioning. Sometimes I'm looking, my French words are coming faster than my English one. But all of this, once you have the experience it becomes part of you. And then it becomes easier and easier. And as you're going to do them on a maybe not regular base, but on a on a on a yeah, on a regular base, your narrative will become stronger and stronger, and people will start to even refer you because they said if you want anything done, ask him. He knows what he's talking about. He's very good. Or people that have problems, they're gonna say, well, call Bob because one time we were working and this and that happened, and he helped us find a solution. And that's what happened with me. The first one was not very successful because I didn't have much experience. But today I walk on any job site in any country, even if I don't speak the language, I understand. I see, I know what's going on. I look at the installation, I look at the product, I look the way the sourcer, I look at all those little things that I've been teaching you, and it gives me a big picture in my head, and I know where to start my battle plan. I know what to talk about first, and then the translator come, and then we start to have a conversation, and then you see the haha moment happening. Oh yes, why? Because people have, for a million different reasons, they didn't read the instruction, they didn't understand, the boss gave them the proposal, and they said, well, you go install this. The boss didn't know what he was talking about. So there is a ton of things that's going to happen during your project, and it's only going to make you better because you have confronted them one by one, and you have persevered, and you have achieved all those little experience, and those are part of you. So what was once on a drawing, now it's in real. And after a while, when you deliver the project, and then you start to have live testimonial, and you have people telling you stories, and people telling you how good, and you're telling the owners are telling you how production went up, and you have those for yourself. Those become it just make you a little more competent, and it takes you from a very, very I would say spatial lighting design, right? And by spatial, I mean you can have a lighting design for a space, and everything is good, everything is at its place. But with your layer of circadian, now is temporal. Now you're affecting the inside biology of the users. Now your design has another step above and becomes temporal, right? Wow. Um, so yeah, that was fun. And like I said, uh, in the in tomorrow we're going back to our number 9 series, and then I'll finish with next week with Tuesday and Thursday, Tuesday and Wednesday, or Wednesday and Thursday. Yeah. So thank you for being there. I really appreciate you coming in, and yeah. So I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday in Florida.